Good morning, everybody, and welcome to Living Astrology with Janet. It is time to grab your cup of coffee or your tea, sit back and relax so we can chat about what is happening up in the stars for the weekend. Happy Friday, everybody. Every day, I think, is it Saturday yet? So that I can sleep in, although I don't sleep in. I wake up at the same time every day, even when I don't have to get up. It is an interesting day today. My second grandchild graduates from high school this evening. Hard to believe how fast time flies. I mean, obviously, that means he's 18 now. He's been 18 since actually January. He's graduating from high school and at the same time getting his associate's degree from college as he did a program called Running Start. So, congratulations to Chase, to his whole family. And I can't wait to see him this evening. I'm probably gonna cry. I did when his sister graduated, she was the first. So, I mean, it's one thing when your kids graduate. I mean, you start that process of feeling like, "Oh, no, I'm getting older." But what happens when your grandkids begin to graduate? Ay, ay, ay. Anyway, it's going to be a good evening, and I'm excited to see him being honored that way. Today, we have quite a bit to talk about. I didn't think so, at least when I was looking at the astrology for the weekend. I thought it was just the big news, Mars moving into Taurus. However, there was also a bunch of other things to talk about. So, what we'll do today is start with the moon now in Cancer. When I pulled the chart this morning, it was at 0 degrees of Cancer. We had just made the transition into the sign of family, home, traditions. Interesting timing to have a high school graduation. And then we're going to go on to talk about the human design of the week, which also begins today, where the sun's moved into the gate 45, which is a gate of distribution, a gate of money and prosperity, and the earth at the gate 26, which is a gate called integrity. So we'll talk about what that means for the week. And as well today, the planet Uranus changes gates. So he's been in the gate 23 called assimilation, where things have been broken down and being ready to be put back together in a more integrated and profound way. But now he's moved off into the gate 8, or will move off later, into the gate 8, which is called the gate of contribution. So we'll talk about what that means, and he will be there until the beginning of December. So it's a fairly long time that we'll get to consider the information coming in to us from that gate. And then we will talk about, of course, Mars moving into Taurus. That was the big news thing for the weekend. That begins tomorrow. And we'll talk about how that impacts all of you. And then there is a minor, it's not really minor, it's important aspect pattern happening today or this weekend, where the sun comes into a square with Saturn. So Sun in Gemini, Saturn in Pisces, and we'll see what that has to do with everything. Let's say good morning to everybody who's checking in this morning. I first saw Tom in there. Good morning, Tom. He says, good morning, Astro Design family. Hello, Narges. It's nice to see you. J-Lo, hello. Debbie Tibbetts Tumiel. Nice to continue on our conversation this morning. And congrats to Chase. Thank you so much, Narges. TD Hawk, good morning to you. And thanks, Debbie. Halo, all of you, thank you so much. Good morning, TJ. Morning. Yep, age is finding us. I don't think we can hide from age or aging as much as I'd like to, or as much as I'd like to think I could. It just doesn't happen. Joan Durchie, good morning. It's great to have everybody with us. Shall we go ahead and jump in? By the way, everybody, let me know in the chat down there how you're feeling. What's the big news in your life? If it's something astrological that everybody's experiencing, I can let you know that. Nico Vasquez, good morning. He says, happy Friday, everyone. It is Friday and it's a beautiful day here. Finally, we've had a lot of rain, a lot of clouds, a lot of cool weather. It's still kind of chilly. So I decided I needed a wrap on at least until I get heated up by talking. But we're headed for a nice weekend. When my oldest granddaughter graduated from high school, we sat out in the rain. Actually, we were in under a covered stadium, but the kids themselves were sitting out in the rain. And much different today for Chase's graduation. It'll be nice and sunny, probably warm even. Okay, so the moon today, like I said, when I first pulled the chart this morning, was at 0 degrees of Cancer, having just moved into the sign of home and family and emotions, intuition, gut instinct, right? So you can kind of see already the tone for the weekend is about being at home. It is about our family members. It is about our sense of belonging. It is about the love of being secure in that in our belonging to a family, we find security or stability, not the kind of Taurus stability, which is more practical, right? And building on security, building on something to create security. This is more emotional security. This is more about the connections that we have together. So, Cancer is a little different theme here. And the moon will be in Cancer until Sunday afternoon at 12:29 p.m. Pacific time, and then we'll shift into Leo. We won't really deal too much with Leo because we can talk about that on Monday. Um, but an interesting void of course occurs. Sometimes we talk about this long void of course, right? That can last anywhere from, 8 to 15, 20 hours. But this is a very short one. The void of course lasts from 12:06 p.m. until 12:29 p.m. So barely a blip on the screen. And because that is occurring on Sunday early in the afternoon or later in the afternoon, I guess, if you are on the East Coast, then it hardly becomes noticeable. It's hardly worth mentioning. I just mentioned it because it's little. So, what are the key themes and influences for us to watch out for while the moon is making this transit? And of course, the first thing is emotional sensitivity and our intuition. The sign of Cancer being water really takes us into the feeling side of ourselves, but through feelings we intuit what is going on, what's needed, what's necessary, that type of thing. But it also increases our sensitivity to emotional energy. So during the transit of the moon through Cancer, our emotions may be more intense. We may feel more sensitive to not only the surroundings that we are in, but also the feelings and emotions coming at us from other people. So it's a time to honor our own emotions, but also to tune into our intuitive insights. What are we picking up from those around us? Now, there's also intuitive guidance that we might need to consider here, trusting our gut feelings or our inner knowing, which is so hard. I was having a conversation with a client earlier this week, and in his chart, he's very much intuitive, right? There's sacral definition and splenic definition, which means intuition or instinct in the moment, like the gut saying uh-huh or uh-uh in response to what's happening in the world. And yet, and as much as he knew that, he was having real difficulty trusting that gut instinct or that guidance. And the reason that happens, especially right now, is because there's so many planets transiting Gemini, sign of the mind, that we're short circuiting the intuition, the gut instinct for thinking. And of course, that is never in human design, there is no way to make decisions from the mind. The mind is an awareness center. It is not an action center. The action takes place lower in the body. So, this is a time then to take care, listen to your intuition, to your gut instinct. I had this last night. I was driving home. I had an eye doctor appointment. I was driving home, and all of a sudden, into my head, or I guess into my being, was this need to reach out to my granddaughter and tell her to let her boyfriend know, who's on a trip today down to Seattle for a job interview, to be very careful on the road. It popped in out of nowhere. Why it would pop in, I do not know, but I acted on it. I called her immediately and I said, tell him to pay attention. He's on the road on a day when Mars is at 29 degrees of Aries, which Aries is metal, rules metal. Mars rules metal and anger and frustration and conflict and confrontation. So I wanted to make sure because he's young, right? You get on the road and you get road rage or you get going too fast. So I wanted him to be sure. But I paid attention to my gut, even though it didn't seem logical to my mind to do that. Um, what's the harm? Right. But if he were to get into an accident on the way home or on the way there, and I didn't say anything, I would have been feeling even worse. So tune in and actually listen to your gut. There's also a focus on home and family while the moon is transiting through Cancer. So we're nurturing those relationships with the people that mean the most to us. It emphasizes when the moon's in Cancer the nurturing quality of our relationships. So especially the tighter bonds that we have maybe with our parents or as a parent to your own children, to your siblings, to your cousins, your aunts, your uncles, whoever that is that constitutes your family, and it could be friends, right? But we're building the bonds. It's a good time to show you care, doing things for people, feeding them perhaps, or caring for them in some way. It is also a strong time to focus on home and the environment of your home, maybe engaging in activities like cooking or decorating or spending quality time with your family. I'm kind of excited because I have a brother and a sister in law coming on Sunday. And literally, by the time they get here, the sun will be in Leo, and it's going to be a party time because they are the party people. So we're looking forward to their presence in our lives on Sunday. Self-care and nurturing. So this is a quality that's often missed by a lot of us, right? That there's this quality that's necessary with, especially with the moon in Cancer, of prioritizing yourself, nurturing yourself, your emotional well-being in particular, doing what comforts you or soothes you during a transit like this, right? Maybe take a long bath, take a long walk, read a good book, meditate, all of these things that are very supportive of you and your well being are very heightened during this period of time. Creating comfort in your life, right? A comfortable environment, a peaceful environment, nurturing yourself as much as possible, but also that when you're nurturing yourself, you're also allowing others to see that as a possible thing to be doing, right? That it's okay to self nurture or to do things that are good for oneself. Now, how do we practically apply those things in our lives during this period of time? And the first thing would be to strengthen your emotional connections with the people you love, especially with your family. So, spending time with family and with loved ones, plan activities that bring you closer together. Um, Family meals. We're going to have a barbecue when they get here on Sunday. And of course, the family's getting together tonight for Chase's graduation. So, we have lots of family things automatically, even without the fact that we, have moon and Cancer, these things were already planned. So if you don't have family things planned, perhaps this is a great time to do that, right? To call up the sister, brother, cousin, parents, whatever, right? And talk to them. Maybe have a heartfelt conversation with those people that you love. Strengthening emotional connections might come through offering emotional support. So be a good listener. It's very difficult when there is a preponderance of planets moving through Gemini because our natural inclination in Gemini is to speak, is to talk, is to converse. And we tend to forget that one half of speaking is listening. So here's your opportunity to be a good listener for your friends and family. There's a big home and domestic focus during the moon's transit through Cancer. So home projects, Focus on things that you want to do at home, cleaning out that closet, not necessarily the funnest of things. See, I knew I would get warm. Not necessarily the funnest of things, but certainly an important thing. Perhaps there's a home improvement task you want to do, maybe gardening. Right now, in at least northern hemisphere, it's a time to get out in your garden and prune those little leaves off of your trees, things like that. That could be also organizing. Cancer Virgo's the organizer, but Cancer also likes to have things neat and tidy. So that home feel, right? Doing things that are kind of homey, cooking and nourishment. Those are the other things that we can do. Um, maybe sharing a home cooked meal with someone else that you love. Personal self care also. We already talked about the need for self nurturing and for self comfort. So try out some relaxation techniques, maybe, or find a time, squeeze it in if you must, for solitude, or doing activities that bring you comfort, right? Taking care of you. Challenges to watch for, as we always do, have that two sides, right? There's always the two sides. One of the challenges to watch for with Cancer is being overly sensitive, managing our emotions. In other words, rather than reactivity, be in response, right? Being mindful of becoming overly sensitive to things that people say. Practice grounding techniques that keep you feet on the ground to stay balanced and avoid taking things too personally, right? I'm speaking to all of you, you're hearing this, but myriads of people out there have no clue about what's happening, and they're the ones that could be the source of emotional um, things that happen for you. So, because you're in the know, respond versus react, and set boundaries, right? There's a challenge here with oversensitivity being the biggest challenge, to set emotional boundaries to protect yourself, right? It's important to nurture yourself as much as you're nurturing others. And if you have to do that by setting a boundary, then do so, right? That would be an important thing to do. We also, when we're dealing with emotions and we're dealing with the moon and the sign the moon rules, which is Cancer, we have mood swings, right? We have the possibility of these heightened emotions that swing from one side to the other. Practice emotional regulation, I guess we could call it, right? Techniques to avoid letting yourself get into reaction. In other words, breathe. Take in some breaths before you react to something that someone says or something that someone does. Breathe first. That gives yourself time to form a response rather than reaction. Okay? Important. Have compassion for yourself and for others, especially if you're feeling up and down emotionally. It is best to understand that it's the moon, right? There's the ups and the downs. There's nothing wrong with you just because you're feeling emotional swings. It is literally a function of the energy. So take care of yourself. All right. Questions out there. Good morning, Pauline. It's good to see you. The course is open indefinitely. So we have the whole year of Jupiter in Gemini. That's what she's talking about. I placed the link in the top of the chat this morning for people who still want to get the Jupiter and Gemini course. And it's open indefinitely. It's always going to be there. So you can always go back later if you want to and take a listen. Jamon, good morning to you. Jolie, good morning. She says, I'm participating in an air crash simulation today at the airport. Afterward, we're having a barbecue. Well, isn't that interesting? Because for one thing, we are in a preponderance of air energy right now. That's the big news, right? And then you have this barbecue getting together with people that you work with, which form a sort of family, right? So you're right in line with the astrology of the day. I love it. Thank you for sharing that. So, in conclusion, here, while this transit these next couple of days is a time of emotional sensitivity, listen to your gut, listen to your intuition, know when to draw the boundary and get drawn in or not get drawn into a sensitive conversation. Sometimes it's best to just be quiet, to not say what's on your mind. to let people vent because there is a venting quality to the moon in Cancer where a lot of emotional energy needs to come out. Now, I'm not saying it's okay to vent at somebody, right? Uh, but if that person is willing to hold that space for you, you would only know that by asking them first. I just need to vent. Are you willing to sit here with me for this for a moment? And then go ahead. All right. Let's move on to the suns. Move into the gate 45 today with the Earth at the gate 26. So we're going to move into human design now. So if you have your human design chart with you, then open that up. I'm going to go into presentation mode so I can share my screen and entire screen. Okay, you want to be a pain today. Hold on, let me open up the picture first and go back to Chrome, present, share, window. There we go. Perfect. So you're looking at a human design chart. And I do this so that I can show you what gates are being influenced by planets. And then you can relate that to your own human design chart. So today, the sun, remember, while the sun is in Gemini, it's hitting many of the gates in the human design throat center, which is the center for communication. It is the center for creation coming into being or manifesting. It is also the center for metabolism. So our metabolism may be running a little higher during this period of time just because uh, every week a new gate is being hit in the throat center. We've already worked through the gate 8 with the sun. It was very brief, just on May 25th. Then we moved into the gate 20, and now we're at the gate 45. And the gate 45 is called the gate of distribution. In in human design, there are a few money gates, right? There's a gate that is really about abundance. It's down here on the solar plexus, the gate 55, that shows us that abundance really has nothing to do with what we do, has more to do with how we feel and how we align, how we can sustain an emotional connection to abundance. But we do have gates that bring up money, and the 45 is one of those gates. And in the 45, in quantum human design, we call this the gate of distribution. In traditional human design, this is called the gate of the king or the queen. So this is energy that is specific to two kinds of qualities to do with money. One is about leadership and authority and being in, I'm going to use the word control, but being more regulated, let's do that, about where the money goes, right? And the reason in traditional human design it was called the gate of the king or the queen is because it is the king or the queen energy that is in control of the money, or at least in their minds, the control and the flow of goods, services, money, etc. Right. So the 45 is really about how we share of ourselves, but also sharing our money. Our time and energy also can be part of this. Um, we could look at it more like distributing of resources, one of which is money. And then the second thing that this gate emphasizes is communication and influence. So it's the importance of communicating, speaking, and sharing, but also the power that influence has. So it's a it's still very it's got a royal feel to it, okay? It's representing the ruler's voice, right? And the ability to manage and allocate resources for the community's benefit. So now that would be on a bigger level, but in a more personal level, this is about how you manage or micromanage the flow of resources coming in, but also the flow of resources moving out. So there's an influence this week on leadership, because during this transit, the focus on taking a leadership role in being responsible for the distribution of resources is pretty high. It's a time to step up to the plate, to influence or guide others and manage resources efficiently, your own included. So it really speaks to this idea of a flow of resources. But how do you flow if you have none, right? So there's that consideration. And how do we control the flow when it feels like it's always just like a sieve, right? And things are just flowing out. But it also emphasizes clear communication and using a voice of authority in communication, especially when you need to convey an important message about roles, responsibilities, the flow and distribution of resources, that type of thing. So here's the gate 45. Now, the Earth is at the gate 26, and the 26 is called the gate of integrity. Remember, the Earth in the week is always really going to be what needs to be grounded in order to seek the highest expression of the gate 45. So what we're saying here is the ability to share resources, to have enough resources that we can share them, to distribute and allocate resources. We have to have integrity. And it's an interesting place, right? Because integrity is also doubled as a gate called salesmanship in human design. It's the ability to influence others, it's the power of persuasion and the need to maintain integrity while you're influencing others and managing resources. So, integrity, being true to yourself, being in your own skin, right? That's what this is about. It is about trustworthiness or embodies authenticity. And it stresses the importance of being trustworthy in all things and authentic in your dealings with others. It's about maintaining honesty and the integrity in all of our interactions. And that's interpersonal and collectively in your job or with your workplace and with yourself, maintaining integrity. So we're focusing on our actions and our communication, especially being rooted in honesty and trustworthiness. So if you have something to say, make sure it's the truth. Make sure it's real. Make sure it's not fantasy, or make sure that you're not saying or doing things designed to get other people to do what you want. In other words, to overly influence them or persuade them to do something that isn't right for them or, isn't even of integrity. So there is persuasive communication potentially here. It's our ability to persuade and influence others, but we have to do that while staying true to our values, right? It's a time to align your words and actions with your core beliefs. You can't be saying one thing and doing another, right? If so, there's a mismatch in that energy and you got to bring it back. So, how do we use both of these energies or how do they influence us? It's leadership with integrity, right? That's number one. So, the combination of these gates really emphasizes the need to lead with integrity. Now, does that mean only leaders have to be in integrity? No, because all of us in some way or another lead, right? Whether we are considered an actual leader or not, we all have something in our lives where we play that leadership role, even if it's in being our own leader, right? A leader for our own selves. So, this is a time then to use your personal authority and influence responsibly, right? And ethically. Let's throw that word in there, ethically. It is about resource management when we bring these two gates together. It's an excellent time to focus on managing your resources wisely and effectively, ensuring that distribution, meaning, distribution is what you give to others, it's paying your bills. It is sharing of your largesse, perhaps, right? Sharing responsibly and fairly with integrity, okay, and benefiting the greater good. Now, practical ways that we can deal with this energy this week. Number one, take responsibility. Step into the leadership role in your life with confidence. No one else could be the leader like you can be the leader, right? So be willing to take responsibility for the distribution of resources and ensure they're used wisely and your own, or if you're responsible for other people's resources. Communicate clearly, make sure your communication is clear. That's a big deal. Be authoritative and be rooted in integrity. Align your actions with your values. Remember, walk your talk, talk your walk. Influence positively. If you can't influence somebody, if all that you have is negative feedback or negative things to say, maybe monitor that, right? Dial it back some. But if you are going to use your voice, make sure you use it as positively as possible. Um, if you're going to use your persuasive abilities to convince people to join you or to go somewhere or to do something, make sure it doesn't turn into manipulation. Persuasion is one thing, manipulation is a completely different thing. So stay tuned to your values and make sure that you are acting and speaking in alignment with that. So that it is it's a big week for us in the financial sector. We may see issues in the outer world about money and about its influence. There was some really good economic news, I think, that just came out. I heard about the jobs in the USA and being better than they expected for the month of May. So we're primed perhaps for some good news economically. Um, the other thing that this brings up for me is that right now the North Node is at the gate 21. And the gate 21 is called the gate of self regulation in quantum human design, but is also called the gate of control in traditional human design. And it sits on the will center. And the will center is the center of the ego. It is the center that is primarily involved with the allocation of resources. So if you have the 45 king or the queen or the person who, wants to take the that looks at the resources as theirs to do with as they please, and then you have the 21 also defined, then what you have is the 21 is much better at managing resources. It could be called the bookkeeper, you're right? The person who is the financial wizard, right? They know more about how to spend the resources. The 45 just sees, hey, I've got all these resources and I'm going to do this with it. But the 21 says, well, maybe not so fast, right? Let's see what makes more sense. So all of us right now, all of you, have the 4521 defined by transit, by the sun in the week that we're in, and by the North Node by the quarter that we are in. So this channel is called the money line. And so it really does speak to money in particular, but it also speaks to how we manage all of our resources, our time, our energy, our money, humans that are a part of our lives, right? If you're let's say you're a human resource manager and you have all of these people that you manage, it really speaks to being in integrity, taking on that leadership mantle, and managing resources effectively. Now, on the other end of the spectrum, the challenges of this particular channel are about power struggles over resources. Who gets the final word on what money gets spent where? Who gets to say where my time goes? So the potential for power struggles with the 4521 is really high. And it isn't just you and me that have this defined. Everybody does in their human designs right now because of the transiting planets. Now, if you're someone who has the 45 or the 21 already defined in your chart, this just adds more weight, right? As another planet now is impacting those gates. So you might have maybe an amped up relationship with money or with power or with leadership or with authority right now or integrity even. It could be a thing, right? A thing that is really showing up in your life. If you didn't have any one of these gates defined, and that's me, I don't have either gate. Now this whole channel becomes defined and I get access to that potential energy if even if it is only for the week, right? So that I hope that makes sense to everybody. Now the gate 26 is here. It's hanging. There's nothing sitting at gate 44 right now. However, if you have the gate 44 defined in your own personal human design chart and that connects then to the gate 26. This is a time for you to really be clear about your integrity, to make sure you are on the letter with what you say, what you do. It is also a channel that is literally the channel of the sale. In human design, this is part of the economic circuitry. And circuitry is just a grouping of gates that come together that do work together. And so here in this circuitry, we have um, the economic aspects. So when we think of the economics of business, even this is part of a business circuitry where the 44 sets the tone for the sale, gets the information from the person. What are your needs? What's your what do you want? And then connects it to integrity, and then if this is a sale, the salesperson takes the person to what it is that they desire and closes the deal, right? So it is a very big channel for sales and for being in integrity while you are in that sale. And we're always selling something to someone, even if it's not commerce, right? We're selling an idea. We're selling why you should do this particular thing. We're selling maybe literally things to one another, or maybe in your store if you have a store, that type of thing. So it's always really about being in integrity about that process of the greeting of the customer to the closing of the deal to the exchange of money or time or energy. All right. I hope all that makes sense. I'm going to stop sharing for just a moment so I can go back to the chat and see if there are questions about that. Um, Tom, a BBQ after a plane crash. That's hilarious and creepy. It is kind of. Christine says, "Good morning. We're glad to have you with us." Pauline says, "Chiron, where is that in human design right now?" Pauline, Chiron is sitting at the gate 42. When I finish with these notes, I will go back to that chart because I want to talk about Uranus next, and I'll show you where the gate 42 is. And Christine, good morning to you. She says, "I have 44 in red. My boyfriend has 26." So gate 44 in in quantum human design, the gate 44 is about truth. So you have truth in the 44 and you have integrity in the 26. Or you have the opposite. You have not truth in the 44 and not integrity in the 26. So that's the spectrum, right, of energies here. And the fact that you bring this together with your boyfriend when you're together, that entire channel is defined. So it would seem to me that in your relationship, the two of you always need to be in integrity. You have to be true to your authentic self. If you're settling for less, or you're just paying lip service to whatever it is that you think he wants, or if he's doing that for you, then it is not a relationship that's built on integrity. And relationships really need to have that basis of truth and integrity in order to be of a lasting nature, right? I mean, there are other things obviously we need. Love goes a long way. But if you don't have integrity, if you can't trust one another, then there's a problem right from the start. So take that and check in with yourself about the relative truth and integrity in the relationship between the two of you. And the fact that you have 44 in red says it's coming from your earthly life. So what's happening in the physical realm. Um, looking whatever it is that the gate is on the other side in the black, you need to apply the gate of truth to how you express that from the soul. Okay, I hope that helps. So I'm going to go back and present again, share my screen so that we can now talk about the theme of contribution in the gate 8, also on the throat center. So the gate 8 has had quite a bit of influence over us lately. And that's because every planet that was in Taurus moved through the gate 8 as it left Taurus and as it entered Gemini. And so what we have now is Uranus at the end of Taurus in the gate 8, which is called the gate of contribution. So Uranus represents sudden change, innovation, awakening, right? He is the surprise agent, he is the liberator. And when he's transiting through the gate 8, which is contribution, it brings sort of an energy of creativity or the potential for your creative individuality to be coming up and be expressed, but it also provides the drive to make meaningful impact through your unique contribution to the world or to society, to culture. So, on one hand, it's very creative energy, it's an awakening sort of energy, but it's also driving us to impact the world in some way, right? It doesn't say that it has to be giant impact. It could be just the smallest of impacts, right? But that becomes your contribution. So the first big theme we see is creative individuality and the expression of your uniqueness. Your uniqueness. Be you. Nobody can do you like you can. And it emphasizes the importance of bringing forth what is uniquely yours to contribute. Not what it is that somebody else has dictated to you to contribute, but what is your unique contribution to the world. And it must be authentic, right? The focus is on that authentic self expression, using your talents to make a difference, right? Not somebody else's talents. They can use their talents in their way, but you need to use your own. This is also a gate of collaboration and influence, right? This gate, because it's on the throat center, it has the creativity, right? But the gate 8 itself influences others through their contribution. And it highlights the power of influencing others through your unique contribution, your unique voice. It's about being inspiring and about leading by example, right? And all of you have this gate defined now, right? You have had it off and on, but now you have this gate defined from today all the way through December 4th. So keep that in mind. And it is a gate of innovation and change. Innovating is about being unique and is about contributing your uniqueness through what you innovate, bringing sometimes dynamic, but also sometimes disruptive energy that encourages you to embrace change and to go on and be your unique self, right? I hope all that makes sense. So the gate 8 here on the throat center. So we see, more oomph on the creative energy, on the speaking of the creating and of the metabolism, bringing out into the world the things that we are here to do. Now, the practical things to do here during this period of time: embrace your uniqueness, be self expressive, work on your own personal projects, right? Be focusing on what you want to contribute to the world at large, or to your family, or to your friends, or to your network, whatever that is for you. There is this idea of fostering collaboration. So, networking energy, which is already huge with all the planets transiting through Gemini, engage with communities, engage with networks that share your interests and your values. Collaborative efforts can really amplify your contribution, right? They can share what your words are or what your creativity is, and that leads to greater impact. The more people, right? Innovate and embrace change yourself. Check in with yourself as to where it is that you need to go outside of the box, where you need to disrupt patterns that have been, stuck. You got to look for where you are resistant to change and overcome the fear of whatever it is. Whatever the fear is, it's false evidence appearing real, unless it's about jumping off a cliff, right? And then there's this physical reason why maybe that's not a good idea. But getting up and speaking in front of a group or sharing your latest artwork with someone, those fears are false. Those are false evidence. Be flexible, right? Be adaptable. Ensure that as new opportunities arise or new challenges arise, that you're willing to pivot and to adjust to the changing circumstances. And balance individualism, your individuality, and collaboration. Ego, right? Managing your ego versus the collective good. Ensure that your desire to express your individuality doesn't overshadow the importance of other people's contributions, right? You're not the only one contributing right now. Inclusivity is another word that we could bring up here, striving to include others in your work or in your projects. All right, good. Any questions on any of that? Go ahead and put it here. Hi, Terry. She says, I'm late, but here. Happy Friday and enjoy the sun. Oh, be you, boo. I like that. Be you. Now let's go to the big news of the weekend, and that is Mars's transit into Taurus. Now, for the last 6 weeks, Mars has been in Aries. So action has been the name of the game. Impulsivity has been the name of the game. Being able, excuse me, to move forward with Aries ideals, right? Aries boldness, pioneering, exploration, that type of thing has been pretty high and easy for to come by as Mars, the ruler of Aries, was in the sign. But now he's moving into Venus territory in the sign of Taurus. So now, where we had impulsive and very pioneering energy, we go to steady and determined action, right? So now we are being more plodding. Now we are favoring a slower and steadier pace or approach to doing things instead of rushing, right? So the focus on persistence is on patience and carefully planned efforts. So that is so funny to think of. It's almost like because I talk about these things, I always experience them, the energy just before, right? So I'm already tapped in to this Taurus thing because, as you know, I want to bring out this a new course on the gene keys. But I'm approaching this very differently. And I'm thinking it's my feeling of Mars moving into Taurus, right? Where I have to be more planned. I have to be more, I have to have those goal steps, right? I have to have that stepwise plan. So taking the carefully planned efforts and executing them as you would any other strategy, right? It's strategic. It is a focus now on building and sustaining. So, building a solid foundation, perhaps, for whatever it is that you're doing, working steadily toward those goals. And perhaps you're working steadily toward longer term goals because this is more steady, determined, longer period energy. And put in the consistent effort to see your projects through to completion. In other words, we're slowing down rather than rushing. We're slowing down, right? Fewer mistakes, that type of thing. But there's also practicality in this. And Venus territory in Taurus is really financial as well. So we have a money component here. So resource management, right? So managing your resources, so time, your time, your energy, your money, right? If we get a secondary kind of look at making sure we're managing our resources wisely. Um, Taurus is always going to encourage the practical approach to finding solutions or to taking realistic action on your goals, right? So we want practical, we want realistic, and decisions then that we make over these next 6 weeks. By the way, this is from uh, June 8th to June 19th. Actually, this is less than 6 weeks this time, 4 weeks maybe. June 1, 2. No, that can't be right. That cannot be right. Transiting Mars. Mars in Taurus on June 8th. And if I look at July, it's July 19th, not June 19th. So from June 8th to July 19th, we have Mars moving through Taurus. So there we have the 6 to 8 weeks. So during that time, taking a practical approach to creation is necessary. Being resourceful. There's a strong emphasis on managing our resources, whether it's time, money, or our energy, and it supports us m- investing wisely, right? Investing, taking the long view of whatever it is that you are creating. So, in other words, we don't, where in Aries we were doing things quickly, we were, jumping the gun maybe even in doing things, we were doing them quickly. Things were turning over quickly. Now, with Mars, the action planet in Taurus, things will get slower, but more steady, right? More predictable, even in terms of what the outcomes will be from our actions. And of course, there's also sensuality and the physicality of Mars in Taurus. So we have the sensual experience of Taurian energy, right? Venus ruled sensuality where all the senses get highlighted. But we also have the physical endurance then of Mars being placed in a steady Eddie sign like Taurus. So it's a favorable time for us to take action on things that require physical stamina and endurance, such as a fitness routine, perhaps, or any outdoor activities, or, hands on projects. We have the endurance, we have the time, we have the energy to sustain them. So, practical applications then for Mars in Taurus would be about focusing if you're in the career and profession. Let's look at that area of your life first. To focus on setting and working through or towards long-term goals, breaking down larger projects into the smaller pieces, and then taking steps, working steadily toward completion, right? One step at a time. I always think of Mars in Taurus like generators, like one foot in front of the other, and then the next step is revealed, right? And then next step and the next step. Not trying to do 20 steps, but just what's in front of you right now, and then what's in front of you next. That kind of movement. Um, of course, building a foundation for a business. This is a great time for that, or a personal project that you are working on. But ensure that your plans are practical and, in other words, sustainable, right? That it's not something that you can't sustain over the long haul. Financial management, this is a great time for budgeting and savings. Take out that budget, dust it off, make sure it's in alignment with your goals, with your income, with your outgo, all of that, right? Focus on building financial security, maybe managing your resources wisely. This is a great time for that. Financial check in. Look for investment opportunities because, again, we're looking for the long haul. So you're not looking at just what's going to make me money today or tomorrow and then, be a loss the next day. You want to see what can build for the long term. In terms of health and fitness, this is a great time to build a consistent routine um, that is also sustainable, that supports your physical fitness, that builds strength and endurance. Let's say, you want to, build, maybe you haven't been walking or riding a bike or doing anything of any physical activity. You don't want to go straight to the 5 miles a day. You want to build up to it, right? So building up to strength and endurance, paying attention to self-care, right? This is Venus ruled. Venus rules self-care and physical well-being. Indulge in activities that nurture your body, that nurture your sensory environment, that nourish your health, right? Your health and well-being. Challenges. Now, Mars can get a little frustrated in Taurus. Remember, he rules Aries, a sign of action, right? I do, I do, I do. And I think I do, right? It comes into my head, I do. In Taurus, you have to slow things down. So there's always the possibility that we can be frustrated by the slower pace of life now because we've been 6 weeks of fast pace, right? But others are going to love it because it slows down things. We have time to breathe. We have to monitor our stubbornness, right? We want to be flexible. We want to be able to move out of our comfort zone of all the signs. Taurus holds their comfort zone close, right? This is where I am. I'm comfortable here. Why should I change? Right? But change is the name of the game. Don't let that inflexibility become stubbornness where you're just holding back for no really good reason except I don't want to, right? So practice flexibility and be open to new ideas or be open to the changes that are necessary for you to move forward, right? Be adaptable. We have to manage materialism. This is a very materialistic position for Mars to be in, right? And by the way, there's nothing wrong with materialism. It can go overboard, right? But we live in a material world. So materialism comes with being here on Earth. But we can manage our focus on the material world. So Taurus is associated with material pleasures and possessions. So be mindful of overindulging in those things, right? Being too focused on material gain. Strive for a balanced approach so that you're enjoying life's pleasures without excess. So that's a key, right? That's a challenge that we're going to be watching for. Practice gratitude as well. This is a sign that loves thankfulness. I was listening to a prosperity and gratitude chant this morning as I was getting ready for the broadcast. So focus on contentment, focus on how good it feels to be you in this moment, how it feels good for you to be in this body at this moment, to be in nature at this moment, to have water, clean water to drink. Focus on the gratitude, right? That'll be a big lesson for us during this period of time. All right, questions? Anybody? I don't see new comments or questions. So either I'm being really clear or you guys just don't have questions today. Now, real quickly, let's talk about the Sun in Gemini squaring Saturn in Pisces, because this is a transit, of course, that happens twice in a year, right? As the opening square and the closing square of the Sun with any of the planets, right? So we had the conjunction, and now we're 90 degrees later. So now we have the Sun is 90 degrees later than it was when it conjuncted Saturn in Pisces, and now he's squaring Saturn in Pisces. And so now we have communication and learning, Gemini qualities, versus responsibility and structure, Saturn in Pisces. So the Sun in Gemini highlights all the communication themes, and the Saturn in Pisces focuses responsibilities, limitations, boundaries, particularly in areas related to compassion, to dreams, to imagination. So we need to ground our ideas and our ideals and our fantasies into reality if we want to make something of them, right? So take a look back in, let's see, it would have been in March probably, where the conjunction occurred. What was opening up for you as far as your creative path? And taking a look now, the tension, the opportunity is about what do I need to do to redirect my energies to make real what was only an imagining back in March. Okay, so that comes in. There's also tension and conflict, perhaps because it's a square. Squares are the ones that cause the tension. If they cause us to do something, right, to move us in some direction. So we have a balancing act that we have to deal with during this period of time. We are maybe needing to effectively manage our time. Maybe we are having to deal with limitations, right? To come back into the boundaries. Saturn loves boundaries and Pisces is boundarylessness. So we have a tension already between having boundaries and having no boundaries, right? So we have to come back into the fold to get done what we need to get done to be able to move out again. So, limitations, we may have to deal with those. We have to ground our ideas into reality. We have to have a practical approach. right? Um, like any idea, it sits up here, it's not doing anything except maybe, in your mind. But until you actually take action on the ground, here on the earth, there nothing is happening, right? You can't just keep it up here in your mind. So you have to do something. So you have to have a goal. If you have a goal, then you have to take action to achieve the goal. It's just the way this world works. Incorporate spiritual qualities into your discipline, right? Into your day-to-day life. Now, challenges to watch for a few days might be about feeling restricted. Maybe you feel like someone clipped your wings for some reason. Balance, flexibility, and structure, right? We don't want it so rigid that we can't color outside of the lines if that's necessary. But we don't want to be so flexible that we're constantly changing our minds about what it is that we're doing or how to do what it is that we're doing. So it'll be an interesting weekend, I think. Debbie says, focus on not overspending, third degree Taurus, right? Right. But also don't go into scarcity, right? The opposite of some of that energy is about fear of not having enough, of lack of abundance, that kind of thing. Okay. So we want to balance all of that. Let's do a quick card. Let's see, which one do I want to do? I'm going to go with the Dreamweaver's Oracle for the weekend. I think that's I think that's a good one. We want to be dream weavers, and then we want to be dream doers, right? Weave and then do, right? Weave and then do. Hi, Amy Picard, to all. She says, love to all from California. It's nice to have you with us this morning. And the card that comes out is the first card in the deck, when the storm spirits play. Wow, look at the symbology in this card, right? See the eagle there with the lightning. See the two dogs on the ground, one with a music. Those are music symbols. And then I think I see a wasp there. Yowza. I see a scorpion. Interesting. Let's see what this card says. And it was upside down. I don't know if in this deck upside down counts. So let's see when we get here. Nope, it doesn't matter. So the essential meaning of the card is about understanding how to navigate divine chaos, how to clear the air, stir the pot, scatter seeds, bring new possibilities. All right, so you're being asked to surrender your need to control outer circumstances, which is based on a desire to feel more certain, avoid confrontation, or resist change. This card signifies a time to trust that the chaos, the disorder, the turbulence that has shown up in your life is temporary but important. You're now able to let go of what is unnecessary or that which you've resisted releasing. Consider how clear the air is after a storm, how dead branches are pruned from trees, and how potent seeds are scattered so new life can sprout in new soil. Even if you find yourself in conflict now, there is a gift in this. It invites you to see things from alternative perspectives and provides you with a lot of valuable information. New, important possibilities arise from the chaos at hand. For now, the highest good for you is to remain in the center of the storm. Meditate and be mindful of your reactions as you don't have all the information needed to make an authentic choice. Watch and wait. There is a divine reordering at the root of this chaos. Listen deeply for the epiphany rising to greet you, and you will know the gifts this experience holds for you. When the storm spirits play, amazing things are stirred up through this divine change for the highest good of all. Remember, you are a weaver of dreams too. Even if you must pivot, even if the threads of your destiny get frayed, the pattern you set will be breathtaking. I think that talks to or speaks about our contribution, right? Being authentic. All right. That is it for me today. I will see you on Monday. Take care, everybody. Bye for now.